Right, so let's get started. I wanted to introduce the Australian environment for conducting clinical trials. This is just a quick overlay of Australia on the US, just to give you an idea of the size. So, slideshow is the relative size of Australia to the US. Australia is the sixth largest country in the world by area and has a population of around 24 million, compared to a similar sized USA by landmass, which has about 323 million. So it's about about a 14th of the population. So per square kilometre, 32 people live in the USA, 262 people reside in the UK, and a whopping 18,000 people per square kilometre live in Monaco. So this is compared to about 3 people per square kilometre in the US. Okay, when you think of Australia, you probably think about endless white beaches and a host of animals that try and eat you. This is a 1,000-pound, 15-foot saltwater crocodile called Solly. And Solly is so named after the last pet dog he ate before he was caught and placed in a wildlife park. But today I would like to show you a different side of Australia, one of a platform for you to consider running your clinical trials. I'd like to provide you with information on the quality of our research and the benefits Australia can provide in fast-tracking the development and regulatory approval of your devices. Australia is home to some of the world's leading scientists, physicians and healthcare professionals. It boasts world-class medical research and healthcare infrastructure, a stable socio-economic platform and an ethical, diverse, English-speaking population with a strong intellectual property regime. An efficient regulatory system including a rapid clinical trial approval system, well-established clinical trial infrastructure, experienced and well-qualified personnel, and global competitive tax incentives for research and development all help make Australia a leading destination for clinical trials. Over the past couple of decades, Australia has developed a solid reputation in the field of medical research. Not only do many key international opinion leaders hail from the region, we also boast many excellent large teaching hospitals, clinical research centres of excellence and facilities with state-of-the-art diagnostic and therapeutic equipment. It is difficult to find an Australian key opinion leader these days who has not worked overseas in either Europe or the US and is not actively engaged in presenting or chairing international conferences. We have a world-class health system which provides quality medical care to Australians. So we do have a lot of people involved and interested in clinical trials. The foundation of our system is Medicare, which has three main parts. We have hospital cover, which has no charges to patients to attend the public health system. Medical cover, so there's 100% reimbursement for things like GP visits, as well as really good rebates for seeing specialists. And we also have the pharmaceutical benefits scheme, which provides incentives and deductions for prescription medication. Okay, so I want to spend a bit more time about our regulatory pathway. So in Australia, if a medical device or diagnostic is not listed on the TGA's register, it can be provided legally by 4 mechanisms. I'll talk to you about the CTN scheme in a moment, but the CTX scheme is similar to an IDE where the TGA reviews, the FDA reviews the application. To my knowledge, we've never had to use the CTX scheme for a medical device trial, so it's all done under CTN. The special access scheme allows doctors to use novel devices or drugs for an emergent use. There's a little bit of paperwork involved with that. And then we have these other 2 mechanisms, which are the authorised prescriber, which allows a physician to provide a product, and a personal import scheme, which allows the user to actually import the product. The clinical trial notification scheme is the main mechanism, however, for providing clinical trial data. Those other 3 mechanisms that I spoke to you about cannot be used to collect any clinical trial information. So I expect that many startup companies come to Australia to collect their first clinical data due to the fact that we don't require regulatory approval. It's a notification scheme only. The Therapeutic Goods Administration defers responsibility for reviewing and approving clinical trials to the Ethics Committee or your equivalent of an IRB. simply employs a clinical trial notification scheme to permit legal supply. This system is quite similar to the FDA's exemption for low-risk device trials. Okay, ethics committee review is pretty simple in Australia. It's quite a quick process, and under the CTN scheme, the ethics committees have that approval process for protocols. So we have two types of ethics committees. We have a public and a private, and depending on whether you're conducting a trial at a public or a private hospital will equate to which ethics committee you use. The approval process is similar. You either have to complete an HREA or a CERP, which is a human research ethics application, or if it's a single site centre, it's a single ethics review process. We also have a parallel requirement, which is local governance review, which is where the actual site hospital, or if it's a GP centre, for example, will review things like budgets, patient information, consent forms. The entire process takes around about 4 to 12 weeks from HREC submission to getting full TGA approval. Okay, I'll skip that slide. All right, let's talk a bit about the R&D tax incentive. The R&D tax incentive encourages companies engaged in R&D to come to Australia to do research. There are two components to the R&D tax incentive. So there's a refundable tax offset for companies that have an aggregate turnover of less than 20 million. And there's a non-refundable tax offset of 38.5% for all other eligible entities. So basically, if you come to Australia and you do your clinical research there, our government will pay you to do that research. Okay, 43.5% in the dollar tax rebate for those companies under 20 million. Okay, who's eligible? So there are a few caveats. One is that you need to be an incorporated Australian company. Mobius work with a number of R&D tax consultants, and we can assist you with that requirement. Setting up companies in Australia is very simple and very cheap to do. You also need to be conducting experiments guided by a hypothesis for the purpose of generating new knowledge. And have incurred an eligible R&D expenditure or notional deduction of at least 20,000 Australian dollars. Okay. So what does that mean for clinical trials? Yes, they are exempt, 100%. You can claim all clinical trial and any R&D type of activity under the R&D tax incentive. Okay. A recent report came out a couple of days ago by Austrade, which is one of our government agencies who help Australians connect with companies overseas. I just want to read out this quote. In an early phase clinical trial, Australia is 28% cheaper than the US before tax and 60% cheaper after the tax incentive. That's from a Frost and Sullivan white paper. Okay. Just to talk a bit about Australia as our compliance. So we do conduct clinical trials under the international standards and conduct trials to provide benchmark for clinical research quality that can be relied upon throughout the world. Under the relevant Australian law known as the Therapeutic Goods Act, it is mandatory for Australian company trials, clinical trials involving unapproved medicines or medical devices to be conducted under GCP. So to not conduct a clinical trial under GCP is illegal in Australia. What does that mean for global companies? Well, they benefit from streamlined processes and clinical trial protocols which are immediately globally transferable, ensuring outcomes that are reliable, highly respected, and can be made readily available in all jurisdictions. Okay, our patient population, so they're informed and willing to participate in clinical trials, have a high level of participation that's expected for a small population. And we've got a lot of websites that encourage people to get involved with clinical trials. Okay, just a little bit about Mobius Medical. We're a relatively small company. We were founded in 2008. We're a full-service CRO. We have everything from the ability to help our clients develop clinical trial protocols, help find them clinical trial sites. We have an in-house biostatistician. We're a flexible, nimble company who enjoy working with overseas companies. We also have in-house ePro and EDC solutions, so we're a one-stop clinical trial research shop. We've got an ISO 9001 certified quality management system, so we passed all of our vendor audits as well. I am being rushed to finish up, so look, I just wanted to introduce Suzanne Williams, who's my business partner, who's flown over from Australia with me. Suzanne and I will be here for the rest of the day. We have an exhibition next door, which you're more than happy to come and speak to us about. And we will be at the breakout session from 9 till 10, so we do welcome any companies to come along and to speak to us about running clinical trials in Australia. So thank you.
Thank you, Steph.